Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 11. I'm clapping hands because I know that we are in the last part of our semester. I'm really excited for you guys because you've done so much great work and amazing growth this semester. I feel so incredibly lucky to have been able to facilitate this course for you this semester. So, here's what to look forward to. Week 11, this week, we're going to focus in on what the detailed lesson plans should look like for your 2 week lesson plan. And we're just going to kind of go through those, what's expected and what's not. Week 12, you're going to look at the advocacy part of your 2 week lesson plan. So you're going to have a good bit, well, not a good bit, a little bit of reading around issues of inequity, opportunities for social justice within literacy. So I'm going to make this week incredibly light on reading. I'm just going to show you a couple of lesson plan templates and one or two very short articles around lesson planning and lesson planning around kids' needs instead of pre-planning out too far. But week 12 will have a little bit more reading because I really don't want to leave off the advocacy part around equity and shortchange that. So you'll have a little bit more reading in week 12. And then week 13, we're going to try to pull it all together and really focus in on your reflection, which is going to be that kind of metacognitive piece of your grade. The part where you're going to really think about, well, how did my thinking change throughout the semester, which I'm hoping it did. Maybe it didn't. Maybe you already knew everything you needed to know around teaching kiddos how to read, but I'm hoping at least there's a little bit that you could say has adjusted within your thinking. And then week 14 is going to be just, get it done because I know that you guys have a lot due, hopefully. And I think most of you have been using this time to write. A couple of you have sent me your 2 week plans of what you have so far to ask for feedback. And I'm really glad that you're taking that opportunity to do so because that way you know you're on the right track. So, really, we only have 3 weeks. Again, looking at this week lesson plans, next week more about advocacy and equity, and then that third week is going to be pulling it all together around reflection and what that should look like. And then week 14 is just getting it all in. So let's look at lesson planning. So lesson planning is an interesting thing to me because the common theme in this class has been we're doing what we do around kids' needs. We're informing our instruction around what kiddos need as readers, thinking about their cueing systems, thinking about what they're showing us via miscue analysis. So, very much informed type of instructional decision making. A lot of the times, there are some structures within schools that make it hard sometimes to plan that way. For example, schools that expect teachers to turn in their lesson plans every week. And I know that's an expectation in a lot of schools, and I understand, why some administrators feel the need to have teachers turn in those lesson plans every week. I think what we need to be careful of, though, is that when we plan ahead like that, like a week at a time or even 2 weeks at a time, know that those have flexibility within what you've planned. And that flexibility comes again from what your students are showing you within their reading and writing. So if I say, okay, I know that in this week on day 3, we're going to focus in on, self-correcting when something doesn't make sense. And then suddenly you're looking at some running records and realizing, oh my, there's a different theme here that I feel like I need to hit. That you have some way within your lesson plan templates, however you turn it in to your administrator, if they require that, to say, these plans are subject to change dependent upon students' needs. I've always had that disclaimer somewhere along my lesson plans when I was a classroom teacher. And I would explain to my administrator that yes, these are the plans that I'm hoping to accomplish, but that my kids' needs always come first. So that if I'm seeing a need and I need to address that need, then I'm going to adjust my instruction. I'm not just going to go with the plan because that's the plan that I turned in. And I have yet to meet an administrator that didn't um, that wasn't incredibly grateful for a teacher that was going to be responsive to her students' needs or to his students' needs. So I would suggest having a disclaimer like that somewhere on your lesson plans. So just letting you know that's where I think about with lesson plans. I think a plan is great, but a plan, especially when we're talking about literacy, is only as good as what your students are showing you that they need. So just know that that can be adjusted. So we're talking about section E of your final project 2-week plan, and I put write out detailed plans for 2 weeks and identify the instructional focus and how you will evaluate the effectiveness of your work with students. So let's talk about what detailed looks like. I'm hoping that you are comfortable enough in your clinical placement to ask your cooperating teacher to look at their lesson plan. It always helps to see what someone who's actually in the trenches is doing and how detailed they are. That being said, there are certain things that I expect in a detailed lesson plan for this class, just so that I can see that you're making the connections that you need to make. So let's scroll down to the rubric for the lesson plan piece. Okay. So I'm looking at the piece of 4.2. The curriculum and instructional practices meet the needs, and that's a typo, I'll fix that, meet the needs and builds on the strengths of all students. Actually, that isn't. No, it is. Sorry. The plan includes detailed information about how curriculum and instructional practices will be differentiated based on need and strength. And the plan includes detailed information about how the cultural backgrounds and experiences of all students are addressed. So this last part, the plan includes detailed information. We're going to pop that into what we talk about next week around equity. So let's focus on these first two. So what I'm looking for is detailed lesson plans on what your reading workshop is going to look like. So that reading workshop at some point during a span of 5 days, and you're turning in 2 weeks, so 2 spans of 5 days, somewhere within those lesson plans, there needs to be at least one shared reading experience. And those, as we have already talked about, can typically come in at the mini lesson point. So at least one shared reading experience. Just show me what that would look like for you. Your other pieces that I expect to see in there are guided reading lesson plans as well. And those would be every day a guided reading lesson plan. So we're talking about 10 guided reading lesson plans, as well as what are the other kids doing when you are, 1, in guided reading, and 2, conferring. So again, depending upon your clinical placement and what grade level you have, the guided reading portion of it, like let's say you're in a 5th grade placement, that guided reading portion may be pretty small. You may only have, one group, maybe 2 groups that really need guided reading, and the rest of the time you're spending conferring, and that's perfectly fine. Just as long as you have somewhere in there what other kids are doing while you are working with students, whether it's in a small group of guided reading or whether you're conferring. So just to recap, I'm looking for at least one shared reading experience. Even if they're in 5th grade, I want to see what a shared reading experience would look like in your classroom. I want to see guided reading lesson plans for 10 experiences, 10 days, because we're going to do guided reading every day unless you're in a higher grade level, which in that case, I would like to see what conferring would look like, or even just a small group reading of you pulling kids together. And then I want to see what the other kids are doing during the time when you are either with small groups or conferring. So those are the big buckets that I'm looking for. When we talk about detail, because part of your grade does have to do with South Carolina standards, somewhere in there you need to put what standards you're addressing. And as well as the part where it says at the top how you are, there it is, how you will evaluate the effectiveness of your work with students. Y'all, this is a gimme. I'm hoping that all of you are going to say, if I'm evaluating the effectiveness of my work with students in reading, the main way I'm going to evaluate that would be, I'm hoping you all just said running records. Yes, running records, especially for kiddos who are in lower elementary grades. So I'm hoping to see, as far as your assessment of your lessons, that just running records is an assessment that you're going to be utilizing to check to see how kiddos are doing. Other ways of evaluating the effectiveness of your work with students can be observation. I'm a huge proponent of kid watching and observation. Detailed anecdotal records on those observations work as well. Um, and then, I mean, your conferring notes. Those are all general ideas of how you evaluate the effectiveness of your work with students in literacy. Notice that I did not say worksheets or a worksheet that the students complete to show that they understand a reading strategy, or a worksheet that the students complete to show they understand comprehension of a story. Those parts right there, to me, are more busy work than they are evaluating the effectiveness. Because what we find in this class is we need to be able to see inside a child's brain, especially a young emergent reader. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is through running records and having conversations with them, especially within conferences. So that part of how you evaluate the effectiveness of your work with students, it sounds like it's a big thing, but literally when I have the part of your lesson plan that shows what the assessment's going to be, those are your four biggies, the ones that I just said. Running records, observations and anecdotal notes, and your conferring notes. Those are your biggies when we're talking about reading workshop and how you're going to evaluate the effectiveness of your work. So no trick there. I'm going to put some reading workshop lesson plan templates within this week's module, but you really don't have to use them. Again, I'm hoping that the clinical teacher with whom you're working can give you some good ideas for some templates that he or she uses. But if they don't, then you're more than welcome to use some of the ones that I had in there. I don't want you to get bogged down in the idea of detailed. I put that in there so that you're not saying, we're going to read a book, and then we're going to talk about this comprehension strategy, and we're going to do running record. Like, that's not enough. I want you to be able to show me through these detailed lesson plans that you understand what you've learned in this course. This is basically the culmination of everything we've learned, from leveling text to reading process to miscue analysis. Like, I want to be able to see within your lesson plans that you understand those concepts. So don't get bogged down in the wrong details. And again, this is your time. You've got 4 more weeks. This is your time to work on these and send them to me via email. A couple of you have already done that for some of the other components, and I'll shoot it right back to you within a couple of days and let you know if you're on the right track or not. So that is for the 2 weeks of lesson plans. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me either by email or by phone or by text, and I'll be happy to answer any questions for you. Again, really take advantage of this time to write and send them to me. Oh, and I also wanted to make a point. Lindsay Nolan had a great question that I wanted to make sure that I addressed to the rest of the class. She sent me an email around a student that she had done a running record with, and the child had excellent comprehension, super strong decoding skills, high reader, but the fluency was choppy. And so, Lindsay was reflecting on that and asked me, so what do you do for a child like that? When everything else is like, you got it, but their fluency is short and choppy and just doesn't sound smooth. And so I felt like this was something to share with all of you. In my view and my theory, which is not the same as everyone else's, fluency is in service of comprehension. I'm going to say that again. Fluency is in service of comprehension. So if a child comprehends a story really well, and when they're reading out loud, their fluency is choppy, I don't make a big deal of it. Some kids are just slower. Some kids are just choppier when they read. Usually fluency becomes an issue when they're spending so much time trying to decode that their fluency is so choppy and their brain can't comprehend what they're reading. They're cognitively overloaded when they're looking at the accuracy of what they're reading. That's not the case with this child. This child has strong comprehension. We leave the fluency alone. So that goes against like every Dibbles lover who has those, got to say those nonsense words as fast as you can. But to me, that's not fluency. Or read this passage as fast as you can. To me, that's not fluency. Fluency is always in service of comprehension. So if a child's comprehension is strong, leave their fluency alone. All right, and that's the end for week 11. All right, I will talk to y'all soon.